gavel. I'm used to having a gavel and doing lots of banging, so apologies that you've got the gavel person, but I'll do my best. Welcome committee members, other councillors, members of the press and the team, the Dunedin City Council team, and we will move to apologies. Now, we haven't actually received any apologies as such, however, as you'll already be aware, the chair is currently on his second delay, but we are expecting him to arrive at some point this morning. So could someone move an apology from the chair for lateness? Thank you.
And I'll be popping out during the meeting as well.
Okay, thank you. To a seconder for both the lateness and her worship popping out. Seconder, please. No, sorry. Seconder from the committee, please.
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Worship. All in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. Right, confirmation of agenda. Because we've got people coming to speak today, and unfortunately one of them is unwell and actually won't be attending, we've got some suggested changes to the timing of the agenda. So if I may move, can I still move? Yes. Yeah, it's getting confusing about when you can and can't move at the moment. I move that we confirm the agenda with the following alteration, that item C8 be taken at 11:30, C9 at 12:15 and item C10 at 1 p.m. Do I have a second for that, please? Thank you. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you.
I have a question. What happens if the speaking order at these specific times isn't met by being able to speak to those items at the specific time?
You mean the people don't arrive at the adjusted times?
Or if debate goes on too long and we are still talking about a previous item, or if we've dealt with issues and then there's a gap. Are these times that you're specifying, are they flexible? Is the question really.
What I normally do in that situation is if we've finished a debate and one of the specified times is maybe 5 or 10 minutes away, I usually just adjourn for 10 minutes, and bring everybody back. If we were still in the middle of a debate, then I would adjourn that debate, take the time out for the person, and then restart it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So, did I have a movement? Oh, yes, I did, didn't I? Right, thank you. Right, declarations of interest. Has anybody got any updates to the declarations of interest? We'll take that as a no, with the exception of myself. I am now the independent member on Wellington City Council. So, do we need to move that? Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm staying corrected. Members are reminded of the need to stand aside from decision making when a conflict arises between their role as an elected representative or independent member and any private or other external interest they may have. Does anyone have any updates to report? And I understand that aside from myself there have been none. So we will move that the committee amends the elected or independent members register and confirms the proposed management plan for elected or independent members' interests. Do I have a seconder for that, please? Thank you. All in favour? Against? Carried. And we'll now move to the confirmation of the minutes. Right. Because of the last minute change on my part, I'm actually operating hard copy, so if I'm faffing around a bit, I apologise. So is there anything in the minutes that anyone requires an amendment or adjustment or so on and so forth? Because if not, could I have a mover, please, that the committee confirms the public part of the minutes of the Audit, Risk and Assurance Committee meeting held on 27th of March 2026 as a correct record. Thank you. Seconder. Thank you. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. And we'll now move to the reports. And someone would like to speak to the work plan and general matters update? Just get myself a bit quicker. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have any updates to give apart from what's in the report, so happy to take questions on the annual report, annual plan or long-term plan parts of it.
Right, so any questions? Councillor?
If we look at page 24 down the bottom there, it's 13. Staff will provide an update on valuations and key audit focus areas for the 10th September ARIC meeting. These valuations, are we talking about valuations, for instance, that have been an issue, like the valuation of the stadium? Are we talking all valuations, like across what the Three Waters are worth, for instance? What valuations are we referring to in 13?
I can take that, Councillor. We're referring to the revaluation of our Three Waters assets, transport assets and investment property portfolio.
And the issue of the valuation of the stadium, where does that sit?
So that sits with DCHL. That wouldn't be coming, but what we will be doing at that same meeting is if there are audit issues for DCHL, we'll be bringing those as well so that the committee's aware.
And the revaluations, are we expecting them to be substantially different? Are we going to have issues with, having to meet audit requirements because of the revaluations?
Good question, and fingers crossed. We have made some changes with the Three Waters valuation this year so that we have one more time to address any issues. So we brought forward the valuation date to 31 March. We have a draft report already for that. And we went out to tender to get a new valuer. So far it's going well.
Thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor, Councillor Lucas.
Thank you. Mine's not on the annual plan or annual report, but it's just quickly trying to find the right page here. On page 34, it talks about the Three Water Committee formation, and I'm just wondering when we need to have that in place by. It doesn't have, it just says discussion underway with Mayor and Portfolio Lead. I'm just conscious that obviously it's got to be in place before 1 July 2027, but I'm just wondering when we need to have that in place by.
Apologies, we might need to check that and come back to you.
Okay. Councillor?
Looking at page 25, 10-year plan, work on development of the 10-year plan for 2027 to 37. It says it continues. Does this work really, is it going to take into account amalgamation for a start? Because we have both major parties agreeing essentially that there will be amalgamation in 2 years' time. So how much effort do we really want to put into more than 2 years of the 10-year plan? Is my first question. And my second question, which is really regarding risk. We now have, for the first time, a debt repayment policy, but there is no how attached to the debt repayment policy. Are we going to address the how of debt replacement in the 10-year plan, even if we only look seriously at the first 2 years of the 10-year plan?
Yes, thank you for the question, Councillor. I'll answer the debt question first. We have committed to working on options, and you'll see in paragraph 15 there, 15D, that as part of the workshop that we had last week, I think, we've committed to working with Council on developing options on how we might look to repay debt. And so that's on our radar. And as far as the amalgamation goes, we're still required to do a 10-year plan, and that is detailed for the first 3 years. We're still required to do infrastructure strategies that are 30 years. We need to make assumptions, and we'll be bringing those to Council as we progress them or develop them.
So, in regard to your second answer, the 10-year plan, which requires an extraordinary amount of work, you're still going to do all of that, even though you know that the last 8 years of it are not going to be relevant, appropriate.
I'll just
I was just going to say that I can answer. Local Government New Zealand is certainly promoting to Parliament to give regulatory relief on some of these things, like the amount of auditing, so the long-term plan, while this process is going on, and the amount of auditing that's done as well, because that's what a lot of the councils are considering as well, is the huge burden on doing LTPs that may or may not be relevant. But at the moment, it is a legal requirement to do them.
I think that's part of the thing, is that basically local bodies are stuck between a rock and a hard place. They've still got to do all the old things, and they have to do them by law, but they've also got to prepare for all the new things, and potentially, like you've said, there could be a huge amount of work done that is actually basically
Pointless.
has little relevance going forward, but there is no choice about it, and it's coming up absolutely everywhere.
Okay, so we've got LGNZ that's going to make some proposals to lessen the potential waste of all that. Are we going to make direct submissions to government to suggest that we shouldn't have to do anything beyond the 2 years in terms of 10-year planning?
When there's been Zooms, and when the Minister Watts is on there, we're very clearly saying to him about that, and we're also very clearly saying to the Department of Internal Affairs that the amount of pressure, I guess, that they've put on local government is huge, and that we're asking for regulatory relief. So that has gone through to government. Whether they choose to do that or not is up to government, but they have been given a very clear message, because all of the councils are struggling under the amount of work that is required to be done.
Councillor Chambers?
Thanks. This is on page 33, in the box there, and the changes to financial systems in relation to the water, in-house water services. It says done Q4 2026. Has that all happened? Is that complete?
Lauren in the back row there, feel free to jump in. So the having a separate ledger, we have that in place for 1 July for Three Waters. That's the first stage. We've got bank accounts open. So in the new financial year, we'll be progressively improving the ring fencing, so that we're completely ready for that 1st of July 27. But yes, some things are already in place. Councillor?
Thank you. I've got a couple of questions, possibly both. Certainly the first one that might expose my inexperience, but I'm still struggling to get my head around Three Waters valuations and the methodology of that. So, to my way of thinking, if you dig a hole in the ground, put a pipe in it, you can't dig that pipe up again and resell it. So you've got an issue of having expensed the money, but where I'm getting to is that recently we appeared to have revalued upwards the value of existing assets, and I wonder why we would do that, and secondly what advantage that would give us in doing that, or whether there is in fact a compulsion to do that.
Is that an engineering type question that anyone could actually answer today?
Yes, perfect time. Did you want to join the table, Lauren?
So my full understanding of that is we have to price it based on what it would cost us to actually replace those assets. So then we can actually depreciate going forward to capture those costs to renew everything.
And then just to add into that, so over the long period of time, we should see that what we're needing to spend on renewals is more or less the same as what the depreciation is. And so by funding that depreciation, we have the cash coming in each year to pay for it.
Okay.
So does that create any problems with the IRD, for instance, or any problems with our funders in doing that, and then overstating the value of what we've got because it's not fungible? Was that?
If people are able to answer that relatively quickly, then that's totally fine. But delving into the intricate details of tax, which is very interesting for me personally, may be a wee bit more than this.
Okay.
The scope of this meeting, if you see what I mean. It is an interesting question, and if it was me, I would put it later to the CFO or colleague just to get a feel for it, because it does interest me very much.
Yep, that's fair. Yep.
Any further questions on this agenda item on matters that haven't already been covered? Councillor?
The fully funding of the fully funding of depreciation mentioned just now is something which historically we've often not done. Is that the case? And also, is the aim now to fully fund depreciation?
Yes, thank you, Councillor. We're still not fully funding depreciation in Three Waters, and the annual plan that was adopted last week took one step, and there's one more year to go, which will be the year one of the water services strategy, and then we're fully funded in Three Waters. But it does depend on the impacts of this latest valuation.
Does not fully funding open us up to risk in terms of audit requirements?
In our water services delivery plan, we set out how we would achieve ring fencing and ensure financial sustainability, and we had that phased in approach of 2 years to fully fund.
Okay, so assuming they've been happy with that, that's fine. On page 32, it talks about progress updates and changes to existing contracts and procedure and procurement processes. I've been concerned about our contracts and procurement processes and the risk that some of these processes aren't always appropriate, or appear not to have been to me anyway. And I'm wondering if it's possible, when we're making changes to the procurement processes, to introduce a requirement that all separable contracts have a business case. I've been concerned that a lot of costs seem to be going through without a business case to support them. Is it feasible, is it possible for in future for all of our separable contracts, that's say every chunk of anything that we price, that there is actually a supporting business case for it?
Well, not having the detail of the procurement policies and things for Dunedin, I'm nevertheless assuming that there are procurement policies, delegation authorities, all those kind of things in place that already cover all of that. So I would suggest that in terms of going through a process of amending that, and I don't know if that's, obviously it's happened here at some point, that this is really the right place to start that debate, because that's quite a substantive debate. Normally the team will do the, I'm going to say the donkey work first and bring it to the committee and then later to council to get things approved if it's the right level of policy. So that's actually too much detail and outside of the scope of the intent of this agenda item.
Could I also suggest that at the next Audit and Risk Committee we have scheduled a deep dive on our procurement policies, so that might be the appropriate time to raise that.
Okay, if I could foreshadow that, I believe that we have an urgent need now for business cases for all separable contracts.
Your point is noted, Councillor, and I'm sure that will be taken into account for the preparation of the next agenda item, or the next agenda, which will have that on as the deep dive, which I actually had on my list of potential deep dives, so that's quite handy. I've just put a line through it. Thank you.
Thank you.
So any other matters, not all Councillor, on this agenda? New matters?
Yeah, thanks. Just on page 35 about projects to achieve compliance, it says developing a job position description for a network compliance officer in relation to backflow protection. Has that been developed to the point that the job's been advertised, or somebody will be employed, or is it just a job description?
Oh, sorry, Councillor, we'll need to check whether we've got somebody in place and come back to you.
Sorry, Councillor, you did have your hand up before, I beg your pardon.
Just a question of clarification on page 25-26. I see here the water services strategy is moving out of the 10-year plan and is is there going to be 2 10-year plans now, one for the local water done well?
Sorry, Councillor, I didn't mean to cut you off. So yes, after the water services reform, we have to have our water services separate from the long-term plan, so we can have some sort of high-level information about water, but anything detailed goes into our water services strategy, which is a little bit like a water 10-year plan. There's some similarities to what will be in our 10-year plan. So they're being developed in parallel, so that they're reflecting each other. But yeah, the water information will be separate.
And if I could add, that will be 2 consultation documents as well when we consult with the community.
And 2 audits as well, and 2 of a lot of things.
No, so the water services, the consultation document for the water services strategy doesn't require an audit. Councils can opt to have an audit, which we haven't.
Right then, if there's no other new matters on this particular agenda item, could I have a mover, please, that the committee notes the work plan and general matters update report June 2026 and notes the audit, risk and assurance committee work plan. Thank you. Any seconder? Thank you. All in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. Right, we'll move to item 6, health, safety and wellbeing. Are you ready? Thank you. Any of you ready, team?
Kia ora. I realise that this report coming to you is actually for April 2026. We just had our Health and Safety Board meeting last week, so we couldn't get the May to you in time. So I'll take the report as read and take any questions.
Your Worship.
I have a question that's on page 49, and it's the E-Road Idle report, and I just wondered what the purpose of the report is. So is it about... No, you tell me what it's about, I won't guess.
So with the fuel pricing going skyrocket, we thought this was a report that we can actually pull off the system just to have a look at what was happening with our vehicles and if there was any changes we could make to, I guess, be a bit more sustainable and cost effective. So this report just shows obviously those vehicles that are in use and when they're idling. You'll see one at the top that's a lot more idling than a lot of the others, and that particular job requires an orange beacon to be on the whole time, so the car needs to be on. So, yeah.
Could we get a battery-powered beacon to save fuel? Just saying.
We could have a wee solar panel on the beacon.
Solar panel, there we go.
I guess that's created the interesting discussions once you run something like this. So, yes, thank you.
Councillor Lucas?
I've got a question on page 40, and it's on the injury 16731, the Three Waters one that was 2 days notifiable. And I know generally when they're notifiable it seems very serious, but this one, and maybe the way the narration doesn't seem as serious. I mean, it is obviously the experience, some minor concussion, but I'm just wondering in this case why this one was notifiable.
So it was notifiable because she actually lost consciousness. Yes. Yes. So that's why I was...
Any further questions from the committee? Councillor Chambers?
Thanks. Just the box at the top of page 45 about active corrective actions. That 48 are overdue. I assume that's the 18 plus 30. It was 48. Is it normal for so many of these sort of things to be overdue at this stage of the year?
If you can imagine, some of the corrective actions take a long time. For instance, if we have to implement some changes to machinery, equipment, or policy. The problem we're having is just getting those dates updated so they don't fall into this not started or underway. So it takes a little bit of admin. So it's just, we monitor it to try and push it through to make sure that they're being kept up to date.
I have a question on page 55 around the EAP services, and I see that we have a very large peak in what looks like March this year, and I'm just wondering if there's any investigation into why there's so much EAP happening in particular in that month. And following on from that, is there a staff engagement or wellbeing survey happening soon, just to perhaps, I don't know if it's a trend, but to look at the why that might be happening?
So one of the major things we're seeing with EAP is the use for personal issues starting to climb, and one of the ones that's most obvious is financial pressures. So although it's a confidential service, we get a brief on the types of topics that might be affecting people. So March isn't in this report per se, but that was about the same time as we started seeing talk about amalgamations, the price of petrol, etc. So it may be that's a reflection on what's happening in personal lives.
Are we doing a staff wellbeing survey soon? Because it would be good to, I guess, understand the thoughts and pressures on the staff.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Sophie. I don't have a specific time frame, but we will be doing one. I think it's likely to be probably either August or September at this stage, but no confirmed dates.
Councillor? Sorry, Councillor, try again.
Hi, can I just ask the level of staff participation in those surveys usually? Is it high?
I'm just racking my brain, but I think it was about in the 70%, 76, something. I'd have to confirm it, but I'm pretty sure it was the last 3 years have been in those.
Yeah, that's a good level, actually.
You'll be able to find it on the hub because it got reported to Audit and Risk sometime last year.
I'm just really drawing it to public attention.
Councillor Chambers?
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, there's quite a nice colourful chart on page 49, the idle report. It shows you all the different vehicles and how long they're spending idling. I looked at this for quite a while last night, and I realised I don't actually know what it means.
Yeah, the worship mentioned that as well just before.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, and the one at the top. Yeah. The one at the top is one of the ones that has to sit there with a flashing light going all the time. So there's going to be a side working party on whether we can solar some of those sorts of things. I must admit I looked at it with quite a lot of interest as well, because you mentally start thinking about, you know, Auckland traffic, and not that I have to drive in Auckland traffic and things like that. So yeah. Right, any other? Oh, sorry, Councillor.
Thank you. 2 questions. Also noted the overspeed reports. Is there a tolerance built into that? And secondly, what's the consequences? Notwithstanding that somebody in my company contributed to the reports, but what are the consequences for repeated overspeeding?
So firstly, there is a tolerance in the e-road system, and you'll see the table at the side that kind of gives you the those measures. There is reports automated from e-road system that goes to anybody that's a manager or a team leader or supervisor, and they have those discussions with their employees. Also, I will say that e-roads does have a certain amount of discrepancy in the system. So it takes time if there's been changes on a road, for instance, if a camera has been changed or whatever, we have to apply to have that changed in the system, and that can take a number of months. So there's always also an investigation into where an incident occurs and to make sure that it's not in an area that we know there is a difference between the road speed and the camera technology.
Thank you. Pleased to hear that. second one, page 54, and this is a little bit sort of teasing out questions from before, but I looked at the chart, which is the work issue comparison to all EAP customers, which is a comparison with the DCC's experience with then an average, I think, of the work issues reported to the same contractor. And the ones that, and the reason I'm asking for this is that I'm trying to establish why culture seems to be such an issue in this organisation. And we've got relationship with manager, 21% of the people indicating some dissatisfaction versus an average of 13. Bullying at 11%, which is extraordinarily high, versus an average of 4%. And workplace safety, 9% issues versus 2% average from all EAP customers. And what I wanted to ask you is whether that's a result of working for a council and then being exposed to scrutiny from the elected councillors. So it has been suggested to me that elected councillors are contributing to this situation by being overly aggressive in terms of their questioning of staff, or whether it points to a wider issue. I'm very concerned at the attrition rate in this organisation, particularly of senior staff, and this would seem to give some sort of window into that. But what I'm asking you is whether you think the behaviour of elected members is contributing to that culture.
Thanks, Councillor. As Ms Pearce has referred to earlier, this is a confidential EAP report, so we don't have the specifics or the actual context. The categories are sort of relatively generic in terms of it. Certainly, your comment regarding relationship with manager was raised at the last board meeting last week, and we did note that the March figure, I think, was around 25%. We were down to 22, and it was below 20% on relationship with managers. So whether or not that's some of the work that we've been doing with our leaders in being able to have challenging conversations in a more constructive way, if that makes sense. So I can't answer your specific question regarding whether or not elected members specifically relate to that, but the title of relationship with manager possibly would suggest not.
Your wish?
Can I just follow up on that, because the last wellbeing survey was done in May last year, and you're mentioning that it might be done in August, and I just wonder about the timing shift for that, about getting the survey done. I guess it was reported to us in July last year, and we saw some bits about it which do refer to our organisation as a great place to work, etc., etc. And I just wonder why the change in timing.
So it is underway, but there's been a number of projects through People and Capability at the moment that they're getting across the line. So one of those was the new organisational, mine's gone blank, values, thank you. So that's now been successfully done, and they're just working through a number of projects. So there's the code of conduct to come across, etc. Once we're in the closing stages of some of that. So it's just lining up all the projects, and so the next one off the cab will be the survey.
Right, any further questions? I've got one. It's actually a suggestion for consideration, not a question, so technically it should probably come after the moving and seconding, but as I'm the chair, I will do it now. Page 52, in relation to just make sure I've got the right thing here. Number 24. Yeah, the alcohol and other drug policy. This is just a suggestion for consideration, but I have found it beneficial that when drug policy is mentioned, it's a good idea to distinguish in the words between legal and illegal drugs, because there's a slightly different context around the two of them. And for example, if you take medicinal marijuana, which is a legal drug, and so on and so forth. So while we know the undesirable behaviours, can be the same, there's one is more of a choice, if you see what I mean. So it's just something to maybe think about with that policy to delineate those two matters. And I noted the mental health first aid course. If that's the same one that I did, then that's a very good course. And I did actually have habit to use it, or an opportunity to use it, not shortly afterwards.
Excellent, thank you for the feedback.
So if there's no further discussion on this item, could someone please move that the committee notes the monthly health, safety and wellbeing report for April 2026? Do I have a mover, please? Thank you. Seconder? Thank you, Your Worship. All in favour? Against? Carried. We now move to item 7, financial report.
Thank you. I'm happy to take questions.
Any question, Councillor Chair? Sorry.
Yeah, page 60, in relation to the revenue from parking enforcement being unfavourable by $694,000, which is a huge gap in our funding. Are these vacancies, do you think, have vacancies been advertised and not filled for these parking officers? Or we're not holding the vacancies? They're actually out being filled?
Sorry, Councillor. We've had quite a bit of injury and illness within that team. My understanding, based on projections at this stage, the team will be back to full capacity around late August of this year. So that's certainly contributed to. We have recruited in, so obviously the training, and as I say, we've had some injuries and things like that as well.
And it's not related to the license plate recognition program. Was it thought that might save staff or something?
So the original intent of the LPR would and was designed to save 2 FTE. So we've actually removed those out of the budget. So we originally had 9 parking officers. We've now got a complement of 7 officers. We still believe that from even though the license plate recognition has been put on pause, we were conservative in terms of the revenue projections for 26-27. So we're still working through the financials, but it's probably going to be close to a net zero impact for next year in terms of costs versus revenue for that. So as I say, come late August, the plan is that they'll be at full complement of 7 FTE, and the budget forecasts for 26-27, we're still confident that we'll be thereabouts.
All good. Your Worship?
Does anyone know when the new attraction at Toitu will be opening? Because I think it was coming to the end of the capital spend on that, I noted. I thought last time I asked it was July, but that's tomorrow.
Well, I'll check and come back to you.
Councillor?
I'm looking at page 65, where we have total loans of $700,000, and there are 2 risk issues that I would just like to get some comment on. The first is the risk of the unaffordability of the options, the $1 billion options that have recently been proposed for consultation for South Dunedin futures. So we have a situation where we are, if you look at the debt graph, already planning to be over $1 billion in debt for the foreseeable future. We're up to 700 now, and essentially budgeting for being over the $1 billion. The risk of unaffordability of South Dunedin futures would add another $1 billion over time to that. There's the risk of the unaffordability. I think there's also the risk that people will no longer take seriously what the DCC is proposing to do. And then the other risk, kind of separate but related, is the risk of a significant interest rate rise and what that would do to all of our projections, all of our planning and everything else. So are we going to identify and own the unaffordable risk of the South Dunedin Futures proposals, most of them anyway, 3, 4 and 5? And are we going to look at a scenario where, for instance, interest rates might go to 10%? I will never forget interest rates when I bought my first major building in Dunedin, where they went from 7 or 5 to 14 and 22% on second mortgage. So are we going to identify any of those risks?
Thank you, Councillor. As part of the 10-year plan process and the process for developing the water services strategy, we will need to be modelling impacts on interest rates and inflation and other assumptions. That will also need to be, once we know the costs for South Dunedin, looking at how that might fit within our budget envelopes.
Is it the intention to model a range of different interest rates? For instance, we have modelled 5% ongoing currently as a fairly reasonable sort of expectation. Are we also going to model more extreme interest rates, unlikely though they may be, because they are quite possible?
We certainly can do. Yes.
Councillor?
I noticed on page 69, BIS expenditure was favourable by $2 million, with no expenditure to date on customer service portal and ITMS cloud migration projects. Have they just been paused, pushed, or cancelled?
Thanks, Councillor. Certainly the self-service portal is currently not on our list to start. The cloud migration is still a project, but part of the work that the executive's been looking at is which are the priorities do we want to put our resources into at this stage. Certainly the finance system is one that we've diverted resources to do, given the priority around that. So we're just currently looking at the rest of the work programme for the IT team, and we'll hopefully have a clearer picture of what that looks like in the next few months around what the priorities should be.
Councillor Chambers?
Yeah, just looking on page 60, just looking at the waste minimisation revenue being, in relation to the Green Island landfill revenue, it's $805,000 less than anticipated, which must be heading up for $1 million for the year. Now, clearly people's behaviour has changed in relation to waste, how much waste they're producing, perhaps since they got these new bins. I'm not sure why. But clearly if that trend continues in the long term, that's an enormous financial impact on our long-term plans with regard to waste budget, or revenue from waste disposal. Like $1 million a year difference in the long term. It's a huge amount of change in the projections for our waste management budget.
Thank you, Councillor, if I may, through the Chair. So you'll note there in that same paragraph that the waste volumes were incorrectly calculated. So we forecast revenue based on past volumes. We realised a year or so ago that, and we do that, we measure the volume over the weighbridge at Green Island. So some of that material that came over the weighbridge was actually diverted, so it didn't go to landfill. But when we did our forecasting, we had the total volume, and that's what we based our forecast on. So the rolling average of waste volume across Green Island over the last 5 to 8 years has been about the same. It's about 63 or 65,000 tonne. I can get that and circulate that. So, but when we build our budget, we go off the forecast of the previous volume, and we made an error in that. So that's been reported through to council regularly, and it's mentioned in here as well. So for the budgets and forecasts going forward, we've got the correct amount, which is all waste across the weighbridge minus that diverted. And some of that diverted material was for recycling, but some of it was actually used for capping of the landfill, which is classed as diverted from landfill.
Thank you. Well, if there's no further discussion on the financial report, would someone please move that the committee notes the financial report for the period ended 30 April and the financial position is at that date. So, a mover, thank you, Councillor, and a seconder. Thank you. All in favour? Against? Carried. We'll now move to item 8. Thank you. Do you want to speak to your report at all, or just take it as read?
Yeah, sure. It was a difficult quarter for the fund, and was down 2.6% for the March quarter, but rebounded strongly to be 116.4 million by the 22nd of April, and it's continued to improve further, and the fund got to a value of about 120 million last week, before the annual distribution was paid last Friday of 3 million. But it continues to perform well and is well diversified and conservatively managed.
Thank you. Any questions? Is that a hand up or a holding up? Right, sorry.
I have to take my glasses off to read
Well,
this
I'm not
more
sure if
from
people
the
hold their
font.
glasses or raising
Which
their hand.
you've kind of answered my question, Rich, which was about whether we were going to take a distribution. So you said the fund got to 120 million, so we've distributed 3, so that leaves us with, so now the fund is at 117 as at today, give or take. And the inflation adjusted, so we're well above the inflation adjusted, which would be about 100 and whatever. So we've probably taken a wee bit less than what we possibly could have.
Yeah, that's right. So the inflation adjusted capital base at the moment is about 113 something. I suppose we've still got to have the June quarter CPI, which is released in July. So, and with inflation high at the moment, that will see that inflation adjusted capital base go to 115 something. Yeah, but the fund is about 117, the high 117 level at the moment.
And I think, Carolyn, we had budgeted to take 3 million was...
Oh, sorry to cut you off. Yes, we budgeted 3 million, and so we've taken the 3 million. Yep.
Thank you. Councillor?
Thank you. It's possibly too far out, but it's something that's certainly exercising some councillors' minds now and some members of the community. What will happen, or what may happen to our sovereign wealth fund and also the assets that we have under an amalgamation and scenario? Have you given any thought to that?
No in-depth thought as to that just yet.
No further questions? In that case, could I have a mover, please, that the committee notes the report from Dunedin City Treasury Limited on the Waipori Fund for the quarter ended 31st of March 2026. Thank you, Councillor, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor. All in favour? Against? Carried. And we'll now move to the policy update report. Just letting everybody know that Councillor Mickey Treadwell has joined via Zoom. You may be able to see that, but I can't.
His video's off.
Oh, his video's off, yep. So we'll go to the policy update report. Thank you. Thank you.
Happy to take questions.
Councillor Lucas.
Thank you. I was very happy to see on page 96 in point F about investigation is underway for implementing the Protected Disclosures Hotline, which will allow for anonymous reporting, because I know there has been concern about the ability for people to remain anonymous with the current system. So has that progressed? Is that likely to happen?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, we're underway. There's a few different options that we're exploring and just trying to see what will work best with our systems, our processes, and go from there. Yeah.
Because I know for many staff it's about being able to keep anonymous and feeling, I guess, and this is my word, safe about if they, in reporting, whether it's, turns out to be anything or not, but just having that ability to anonymously report. So I think that's a great initiative. So thank you.
Councillor?
I'm just wondering if we've done anything about the DCC website in terms of making a path for potential whistleblowers a little bit more clear rather than a long list of police, ombudsman, Justice Department, all of these other things that they can go to. I have asked in the past whether this could be done. I'm wondering if anything has been.
Thank you, Councillor. So yes, we have updated the policy itself to give specific contact details to our three main points, which is either the Chair of the Audit and Risk Committee, our Fraud Control Officer, Carolyn Allen, or the CEO. In terms of any further, that's something that is part of that systems discussion, as well as some of them have the ability to allow for an external portal as well, so that's part of what we're exploring.
And do all of those three contacts basically, are there, do they have email details, for instance?
Yes, we have email and phone number details.
Thank you.
Thank you. In terms of the information management policy, and I think in it, right at the beginning, it talks about, it's for... Under 2B, it talks about and includes elected members. So I'm just wondering, is there going to be, I don't know whether the word is training or some information, because I think that maybe some elected members may not be so techno-savvy in terms of their roles and responsibilities in this policy. I'm just kind of floating that as a...
Yes, thank you, Councillor. That's a good point to raise. Quite often too, a lot of the information management side of things are helped manage through the governance supports officers, so they're usually your best point of call initially. But yes, we can look at where those touch points are and send that information through on, yeah.
And I mean, it's not specifically in here, but I know when we get asked like a Lagoima request and then people just come back and say, oh no, we have no communication, and I've sent stuff through and they're like, oh, how come everybody else said they had nothing, and all councillors are included. So I mean, it's like it's a whole information policy, all of that management, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor?
On page 97, in paragraph 8, it says information management policies from other councils were examined to support consistency in the wording and approach. Is there no standardised policy that either government, LGNZ or anyone else has proposed that would be equally applicable to all councils? It seems to be that if we're all doing our own, that a lot of resources gobbled up on something which should really be a national standard.
Does anyone have an answer or a comment on that?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. I think there are probably a number of policies across local government that would support being standardised.
Would you like to send me a list so that I can promote them? No, seriously, I'd like to get one from you, because I mean, these keep popping up, and I know staff are doing their very best to try and do the best that they can, but with so much work to do, and these things are the same issue for all councils, it's down to government, in my view, to mandate them and to get something sensible that we can all agree with. But anyway, another issue altogether regarding information management policy, and that is the issue of now readily available and essentially free for a lot of people, AI. In terms of the information management policy, have you recognised the power of AI to search all manner of documents, ours and other people's, in order to draw information that might not have really been available in the past, and information which may in fact be confidential.
Yes, thank you, Councillor. Currently on the ELT papers this afternoon is a draft AI policy for review. So it takes into account some of the things that you've covered already, and effectively looks at open and protected use cases. So you're right, ultimately AI is a powerful tool, and it's about how we manage what we use it for and how we use it, so that we don't breach any privacy aspects, break any intellectual properties, etc. And there's a whole range of things around that. But there are some national guidelines and principles around that. Not necessarily the same policies across councils, but there are some guidelines that we've used to base the policy on, which will come at some point, I'm thinking, here for September at this stage.
And interestingly, if you happen to be on the Audit Office website for various reasons, you'll now see some of the reports on there have a disclaimer at the start as to whether or not there has been any AI involved, or whether it's been informed by AI. That's actually quite useful. Well, it's useful wording for when that time comes. And another report that I may be of interest in terms of developing the AI policy is the English National Audit Office did quite a comprehensive document around it. I could retrieve that for you if you're interested. It's a public document. Because virtually everybody's developing AI policies at the moment, so it's there's a lot of good information out there.
I understand that, and I'm gratified that staff are very obviously aware of the AI issues in terms of their use of AI. But my question really was, in terms of information getting out there, especially confidential or sensitive information, do you recognise or have you recognised in your policies that there are external users of AI that can use AI to basically pull information out of businesses like the DCC that they'd never be able to do without AI in the past? So we, I think, really need to anticipate active users of AI outside of the organisation using AI to penetrate what was previously confidential information.
So it's my understanding that where we have confidential information within our systems, that the general public would be unable to access those or that information unless somebody places that information into the public domain. Certainly the work that we've done around keeping our information secure is that the tools that we've got are a lockdown version. So both the Big Tin Can system and also the co-pilot systems that we've got are effectively secure lockdown. So you can search or use that with confidential DCC information that will not then take that information out into the wider world and become public. So that's where we talk about open and protected cases within the policy. If it's general public information, use anything that you pretty much want as long as it's reputable. If it's protected and it's confidential, then you should be using the DCC approved system, which effectively is Big Tin Can and or co-pilot for that work.
And that actually fits with my experience in professional services, whereby there was a particular AI that we used within our, but it was completely shielded from external. But I mean, if people are interested in, not to break the meeting gun too long, but that's possibly in the public excluded under cybersecurity, they might like to just say a note about how that works. Again, we don't want to go down coding roads and have very long meetings for those of us who've got a bit of an IT background. But it's a good question, and thank you for the response. So any other, sorry, Councillor?
Just page 106, and might be getting a bit boring, but the company credit cards continue to give me some unease, and when I read the policies or the suggested changes to the policies, that hasn't really alleviated that. So I noticed the clause 4.12 says when the purchase card is unavoidably used for personal purchases, and then goes on to say what you have to do. I found that quite extraordinary, that the use of the term unavoidably used for personal purchases. But the clause after that, albeit that it's got some covenants to it, also talks about a cash advance possibility using these purchase cards under extraordinary circumstances. And as an employer of a lot of people and not an issuer of very many company credit cards, I just wondered whether how robust this is. This appears to me to be a very significant point of weakness in our organisation, I guess, and I just wondered if those sorts of statements were, if you could explain why they needed to be there.
I'll just partially answer that, if that's okay. I've been in a situation, or been in an organisation in a situation where people have actually been stranded somewhere and they've had to do that, and we've always had in our policies the provision for extraordinary circumstances, which is, well, stranding is a good example of it, where a person has had to use a business card or whatever, and obviously it's been repaid later. So that, it's a good idea to have it in there on the very, 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 very off chance. But I agree with you, it's certainly not a practice that you would encourage in normal use. Sorry, I jumped you then.
Sorry, accepting that, could I reframe the question then? How often does that happen?
Sorry, I'll take this one, Councillor. Yes, to Rachel's point, yes, it is just there as an extenuating circumstance. It just gives us some robustness as to what to happen. It doesn't happen very often that we have that. If there is a personal purchase, it's usually because the company we use for our credit cards might be their personal banking card as well, and so hence that just accidental. I've used my same bank card, it looks the same, but it's actually this one, not that one. And we have very good follow-ups with the staff. They often let us know that they've done it well before we see the transaction the next day anyway. So we're already onto it with getting that reimbursement sorted.
So, Councillor Hall, you had a question earlier, or you? Oh, sorry, I thought it was you first. Right, go.
On page 98, the suggestion that we give some Otago Regional Council staff a credit card is one that had me a bit discombobulated, I think is the word. Why is it that we would give ORC, a quite separate organisation, access to our ratepayers' funding? They talk about the emergency funding resilience card, whatever. Why would we give them our credit cards when the ORC is quite capable, if they needed them, of supplying them with their own credit cards?
Thank you, Councillor. Yes, so just it is building on that. It's recognising that even though the civil defence staff are employed by ORC, they do carry out activities for us on behalf of DCC as well, especially if it's a heavily DCC involved activation. So it's having that resiliency there. So as you've pointed out before, we don't give purchase cards that are just kind of an open-ended. They have to be specific to a person. And we can't necessarily guarantee who's going to be in the activation bunker at any given time. And because we're reducing our staff cards, it made sense that the civil defence staff will always be there. They're always part of that activation. So we're at least got guaranteed a card there should we need to for those purchases. It could be, for example, one of the events we had to get temporary accommodation, and so it was being able to get those rooms and stuff booked easily with a purchase card that then allowed the flow of the process.
It doesn't answer the question, why can't the ORC issue their cards to them since they're ORC members?
I may be able to answer that if I may, Chair. Because the way emergency management is set up, costs fall differently for different organisations. So Otago Regional Council are group, so they are responsible for the oversight and coordination of an event that covers more than just a TLA area. So sometimes a flood will only be in Dunedin. Sometimes it's in Dunedin, Clutha and Central, and a group will always maintain a watching brief on a Dunedin only flood, but they don't need to coordinate the distribution of resource and assets between the regions. So the costs for a Dunedin response, like running a generator, falls to the EOC, which is the Emergency Operations Centre, which is entirely Dunedin City Council and our responsibility. So it's not a group-directed activity. It would become when there's a region-wide emergency declared, and ORC are providing resource from other areas, and that could be other areas in the entire country. There are some costs that fall there, but in a localised event, broadly speaking, the costs are allocated to the council, our council, and tracked. And in some instances, there is an avenue for some cost recovery through NEMA.
So are you suggesting that in the event that they did have to buy a generator or whatever, that even if the ORC person had their own ORC card, it would be more efficient for them to use a DCC card, since that's where the cost would end up finally anyway?
Yeah, they'd end up having to cost recover off us. So yes, it's probably important to know in an activation, giving anyone a card to go and buy something would be done by a function manager, probably logistics, or the controller. So it is noted at that time. If you go and give your card, I had to give it as controller to someone to buy some provisions for the welfare centres in the 24 flood. But that was noted down that I'd handed the card to that person. They brought all the receipts back. So it does happen. It's not just a card sitting there that someone's going to go, oh, I should go and buy some stuff. It has to be directed and then documented that that's a step taken, because every action you take in an event has to be auditable, every decision, and so that it's well documented.
Thank you for that. That actually makes sense now, rather than having to try and mop it up later.
So thank you for that. Approach
on the same page, we've got under an update under section 4.7 to have the standard limit for purchase cards of $2,000 to reduce exposure risk. This standard limit, is that for any one purchase? Is it for a week? Is it for a month? How does that reduce exposure?
Thank you, Councillor. It's for per month, and it was originally at $5,000, so we're reducing it down to $2,000. We've done analysis on what the spending habits are, and that was still a nice pragmatic option of reducing it, but fitting within most spends.
And would that be for per calendar month, or how does that work?
Yes, per calendar month.
So if somebody wanted to spend $4,000 at the end of a month, they could do that by spending $2,000 at the end on the 30th, and then spend another $2,000 on the 1st of the next month.
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
Councillor Hall.
Councillor Vandervis asked my question. Thanks.
Okay, thank you very much. So if there's no further discussion, could we have a mover, please, that the committee notes the policy update report, June 2026, notes the information management policy and approves the updated purchase card policy. Do I have a mover? Thank you, Councillor. Seconder? Thank you, Councillor. All in favour? Against? Carried. You may notice that my voice appears to be going away. This may be a good thing, but if I get croaky, I'm doing my best.
I'm a bit the same. Perhaps if you bring your microphone a wee bit closer.
Oh, I've done that already. I'm actually leaning about 2 inches away from it, but it's just fading into the ether. I will now move that the committee, pursuant to the provisions of the Local Government Official Information and Meetings Act 1987, exclude the public from the following part of the proceedings of this meeting, namely for the reasons stated in the agenda. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. And we'll now have we'll take a 10-minute break. Oh, sorry.